It was supposed to be an adventure. Ebon Hollow, the Forest of Whispers, a place shrouded in darkness where no one dared to go. The stories were always the same. People went in and never came back, except for one. Elias Greaves had emerged from those woods years ago, broken, muttering nonsense, his mind shattered. His words haunted the villagers. The forest knows. It knows your fears. But Alex and his friends thought it was just a legend. Their group stood at the forest's edge, eager to prove the stories wrong. Alex, bold and determined, led the way. James, the skeptic, cracked jokes to mask his unease. Emma, quiet and sensitive, seemed hesitant but didn't speak up. And Liam, the tech expert, adjusted his camera, ready to capture everything. But the forest was waiting. An old man appeared, his eyes hollow with fear. His voice trembled as he warned them, "Don't go in there. That forest, it's alive. It knows your name. It knows your sins." James smirked, brushing past him. "Sounds like you've been watching too many horror movies, old man." But as they stepped into Ebon Hollow, the world seemed to shift. The air grew heavy. The sunlight dimmed, consumed by the canopy above. The silence was deafening. No birds, no insects, just an unnatural stillness. And then the whispers began, soft, faint, like the forest itself was breathing. "Did you hear that?" Alex asked, stopping in his tracks. "Hear what?" James scoffed, glancing around. Emma's voice trembled. "It sounded like my mom." James rolled his eyes. "Right? Your mom's just hanging out in a haunted forest. Let's keep moving." But Emma's eyes darted nervously between the trees. There was something there. She could feel it. They pressed on, the whispers growing louder, weaving through the trees like a sinister melody. Hours passed. The forest felt endless, its paths twisting and looping. And then they found it, a rusted lantern lying next to a torn backpack. Alex knelt and picked up a journal from the bag. Its pages were filled with frantic scribbles. "The forest speaks," it read. "It knows your fears. Don't listen to the voices. They're not real." Liam's hand shook as he filmed the symbols carved into nearby trees. Symbols that seemed to shift and pulse when the light hit them. The whispers grew louder, clearer. No longer random, they now called out names. "Emma," a voice called, soft and pleading. Emma froze, her face pale. That's my mom." Her voice cracked. "She's here. I have to find her." "Emma, don't." Alex shouted. "It's not real." But Emma was already running, her cries echoing as she disappeared into the darkness. They chased after her, but the forest seemed to close in, twisting the paths and swallowing their voices. Hours later, all they found was her scarf, tangled in the roots of a massive tree. Emma was gone. Terror gripped them. "We need to leave," James shouted, his voice rising. "We're all going to die here." "No," Alex snapped. "We can't leave her. She's gone." James screamed, panic consuming him. "This place, it's alive. Don't you get it? We're next." James stormed off, ignoring their shouts. Moments later, his screams pierced the air. Then silence. Alex and Liam were alone now. The forest began to change. The trees seemed to breathe, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers. Shadows danced just out of sight, moving closer with every step. Liam's drone buzzed into the air, its camera capturing glimpses of movement, shapes that weren't human. Then, without warning, it crashed into something unseen. The whispers became screams. Figures emerged from the darkness, their hollow eyes glowing faintly. Their mouths moved, but the sound that came out wasn't human. It was deep, guttural, and unrelenting. Liam froze as the figures closed in. "They're not real," he whispered. "They're not real." But the forest didn't care. Liam screamed as the shadows swallowed him whole. Alex ran, stumbling through the undergrowth, his breath ragged. His flashlight flickered, the beam barely piercing the darkness. Then he saw it, the clearing. At its center stood an enormous tree, its roots writhing like snakes, its bark covered in glowing, shifting symbols. The air was thick with a presence, a weight that pressed against Alex's chest, making it hard to breathe. The whisper stopped. From deep within the hollow of the tree, a voice called out, "Alex, help me." It was Emma's voice. His heart raced. Tears streamed down his face. "You're not real," he muttered, shaking his head. "You're not real." The tree groaned, its roots shifting, reaching for him. He turned and ran. The forest fought to keep him. Branches clawed at his clothes, ripping his skin. Shadows chased him, their screams deafening. But he kept running, the world spinning around him. And then he broke through. The tree lean ended abruptly, and Alex collapsed onto the road. The forest stood silent behind him, dark and menacing. Villagers found him the next morning. His face was pale, his eyes wide and hollow. He muttered the same words over and over. "The forest knows, it knows." They recovered his camera, but the footage was useless. Nothing but static and faint whispers. The forest kept its secrets, and as Alex sat in stunned silence, staring at the edge of Ebon Hollow, a single whisper drifted on the wind. "Come back.